So if any of you are like me and you're struggling to find some new 5-star worthy books, I've compiled a list of 10 superb recommendations for you. These aren't really in any specific order, but I'm just gonna warn you now that there's one of them that you might not be too happy about. I'm somewhat embarrassed that it's one of my favorites because I know a lot of people dislike it, but I have to be honest with this list, so I'm including it. I'm hoping that in doing this, I can kind of figure out what makes these books great to me and to use that information to find even more, because I'm gonna be honest, it's been a long time since I've added to this list. So without further ado, these are the top 10 best books I've ever read. Okay, so the first book on my list is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I actually didn't read this book for the first time until last year, and I think the fact that I enjoy this book so much as an adult, even though it's kind of a kid's book, just goes to show how good it really is. I love C.S. Lewis's writing. It's like the perfect mix of really like intellectual writing, but it also flows really well and it's easy to pick up. I feel like most of you probably know already, but for those of you who don't, this book is about 4 siblings who enter into this new magical world through a wardrobe, and it's about all their many adventures in this world. Most of you probably know the concept of this book, probably because you've seen the movie, but even if you have seen the movie, I would still suggest reading the book. It's just a totally different experience, and I loved every second of it. I actually ended up reading the entire 5-book series, and I really love all of them, so you should read all of them, but The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was definitely my favorite, and it's Christian fiction, which is just an extra positive to me. I just highly recommend this entire series. No matter what age you are, I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy it. So if you've been in the reading world for a while now, you've probably heard of The Nightingale, mostly because there's a plethora of videos of people crying over this book. And yes, it's pretty devastating, but that's also kind of what makes it great. It takes place in France during World War II. The book switches between perspectives of 2 sisters during the war. Both sisters live a pretty different life, and they're dealing with different side effects of the war. The younger sister, Isabel, joins like the resistance, and she's helping like refugees escape, while the older sister is working on managing her home and taking care of her kid when her husband goes off to fight. I think the best part about this book, and honestly about any Kristen Hanna book, is the writing. I think she's a very character-driven writer, and the way that she writes about her characters is so good, and especially their relationships to each other is like nothing like I've ever read before. I'm going to talk about her writing style more a little bit later, because yes, there are 2 Kristen Hanna books on my list. Even though this book can be pretty sad at times, I think there's something to be said about books that can get people to get that emotional over the story. To me, that's just a sign of a great book. Now we're gonna switch up the genre for book 3. The next book is The Silent Patient. This book really blew up a few years ago. I remember first hearing about it and thinking I wouldn't enjoy it that much, so I kind of avoided it for a little while, but then finally gave in and just read it, and I'm so happy I did. I love a good mystery, especially one that genuinely surprises me at the end, like actually has a really good plot twist, and this one does. I feel like with most mysteries, you can at least see parts of the plot twist coming before it does, if that makes sense, but with this one, I was genuinely so surprised when it happened. Like, the ending blew my mind. In summary, it's about a woman who commits a crime but refuses to say anything about it or explain why she did it. And the main character, Theo, is a therapist, and he's determined to get her to speak to him and explain why she did what she did. This book is also just well written with some really interesting characters. If you like mysteries, you have to read this book. It's so good. Now for book number 4. The next book is, surprise, surprise, another World War II book. I honestly didn't realize there were so many of these in here. I'm starting to notice a theme. I think one of the best things about All the Light We Cannot See is how unique the plot is. It's an adult book, but it's about 2 young kids during World War II. The boy is forced into the military. The girl, who's also blind, is like kind of part of the resistance. So they're both kind of fighting for opposite sides, but eventually their paths converge. Like The Nightingale, it's also kind of a hard one to read. It's really sad at times, but also good at the same time. There's also a little mystery sprinkled in, which I love. I just remember vividly finishing this book and immediately wanting to start it all over again, and I just think it's a great book all around. So I'm starting to notice a theme of World War II books and also multiple perspectives, so I'm gonna keep that in mind when I shop for new books. So I've come to my car because the next book on my list I actually don't own. I listened to it on audiobook originally, but because I love it so much, I've always wanted the hard copy. It's also one of those books that I think I really want to read again sometime, so I've come to Barnes & Noble to get the physical version. While I'm here, I'm also going to look around for some other books, since now I'm getting kind of a better idea of what I might like in a new 5-star book. Alright, I got it. The next book is Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. When I started listening to this book, I did not expect to love it at all. And maybe that's why I loved it so much, because I went into it with such low expectations. This book is about a mom who watches her son commit a crime, but she doesn't know why he did it, and then every day after that is going backwards in time, if that makes sense. So the next day is the day before the crime, and the day after that is 2 days before the crime. So she's trying to solve this mystery of why her son did what he did, but while also going back in time. It sounds kind of complicated, but it's actually such a cool concept. This book also had a crazy plot twist that I did not see coming. Sadly, I did not find any other new books that I could try. I have a lot of options, but I'm not sure what I'm gonna get next. I think I need to get through the rest of this list before I decide. Okay, I don't know what's wrong with me, but this is my third World War II book that is in this pile. I genuinely did not think about this when I was making this list. If I did think about it, I would have excluded some of these because nobody needs to be reading this many depressing World War II books. I think I just had an era a few years ago where I read a ton of these and just really enjoyed them. So anyway, this is Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. I don't know how to say her last name. And it is yet another historical fiction taking place during World War II. This one is a little different than the other two because it's actually a YA book, which is the first on the list so far, I think. Actually, Chronicles of Narnia was, but I think that's even younger than YA. There's actually another young adult book coming, but it's the one I'm really embarrassed about. But this one I'm not, because I think a lot of people would love this book. This one I read as a teenager and instantly loved it. It's about 4 kids in their teens, or maybe some are in their early 20s. It goes into each of their perspectives as they try to escape their countries as they're being attacked, and eventually they all cross paths and start traveling together. There's so many things about this book that is so similar from a lot of the others I've talked about. But anyway, it's a really good book. It's high suspense. It's really entertaining. Again, there's some mystery in this one too. Also, the fact that this is still on my list of my top 10 books, even though I read it such a long time ago, just goes to show how long it's been since I've added to this list. So hopefully I can find some more soon. Time for the next book, and don't worry, the next one is so different from all the others. So my next book is actually nothing like any of the others. It's Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. It's actually a rom-com. Bet you weren't expecting that. It takes place back in 1999, and it's about these 2 co-workers who work for a newspaper who eventually fall in love. The best part about this book is that it shows all the emails sent between the guy and the girl, or the girl and her best friend in the office, and they are actually so funny. I usually don't read very many like funny comedy books, but this one actually made me laugh a lot, so I figured I had to put it on this list. I also really just like Rainbow Rowell's writing style. She's very straightforward and to the point. I have a couple of other books of hers that I also really enjoy. She can be kind of blunt at times, but that also is what makes things more funny. This is one of those books that's just a great time all around. It's not too long. You're gonna fly through it. Now it's time to get back into the depressing world of Kristen Hanna. My next book is The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. There's something about the setting of The Great Alone that makes me want to so badly live out the rest of my days alone in the Alaskan wilderness. And just like the last Kristen Hanna book, this one might make you cry, but in the best possible way. This book starts off with the main character, Lenny, who's a young girl in the 70s, and she moves out to Alaska with her crazy parents. The book takes place throughout her entire life, all the way from childhood into adulthood. There's so much that goes on in this book, it's hard to even describe. There's a lot of ups and downs. I think, again, a big reason I love this book so much is how well the characters are written, the same way that they are in The Nightingale. Like, even the random neighbors you meet like 1 or 2 times are described so well that you feel like you know them. I think some people can be a little bit judgmental towards Kristen Hanna books because they tend to be a little bit dramatic, but in my opinion, if a book has a lot of intense stuff going on, that just makes it more interesting and fun to read, and Kristen Hanna's just good at that. I feel like after this list, everyone's gonna think that I'm just obsessed with Kristen Hanna, but funnily enough, there's actually another repeated author on this list. So I read the Screwtape Letters a little more recently than any of the others. It's by C.S. Lewis, just like the Chronicles of Narnia. The concept of this book is so different from like any other book I've read, and I think that's why I like it so much. It always sounds weird to describe, but just trust me, it's really good. So it's in the perspective of 2 different demons writing letters to each other about like the art of possessing someone. It sounds a little creepy, but it's so well done. I think C.S. Lewis is so smart that he can literally take a book about 2 demons and make it all about how good God is somehow. And literally the whole thing is just letters back and forth and back and forth. It's such an interesting idea for a book, but it's done in like the best way. This is also a very short book, so it's not going to take up too much of your time. So now it's time for the last book. Like I said, it's a little bit embarrassing. It's a young adult book and I read it as a teenager, so it was just perfect for me in the time that I read it, so don't judge me. But here we go. So the next book on my list is We Were Liars. So for those of you who have never heard of We Were Liars before, it's a young adult mystery that was big several years ago, but although a lot of people loved this book, it seemed like the same amount of people really hated it. If you have read it, you have to admit the plot twist was insane, and as we know from this list, I love a good plot twist, especially one that I don't see coming, and I didn't see this one coming. A big thing people don't seem to like about this book is the writing style. It's very choppy and like poetic, but I have to admit, I think it's done well and I do really enjoy it. It takes place on a private island in the summer where a girl is trying to figure out the mystery of what happened to her the summer prior, but she doesn't remember anything and she's not sure why she doesn't remember. It's quick, it's suspenseful, it's fun. The setting is really good too. I think the time of when I read it could also have to do with why I love it so much. It was closer to when I was first really getting into reading, and I think this may have been the first big mystery I ever read, so that might be part of why I loved it so much. But even now, looking back, I don't think there's anything bad I can say about this book, because in my opinion, overall, it's just really well done, and that's something I would say about all the books on my list that I talked about today. So I hope you found some intriguing recommendations through this, and if you have any new recommendations for me, please let me know. I'm really excited because now that I've somewhat dissected this list, I have a list of things to look for when buying my next one, so hopefully this list will finally be growing soon.